Welcome everyone to the Municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc, our regular council session on Tuesday, July 2nd, 2024. The Municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc acknowledges that it is located on Treaty 21 territory. We are thankful to the generations of people who have taken care of this land, including the Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, the Munsee Delaware First Nation, and the Oneida Nation of the Thames. Roll call. Councillor Pelkman is absent with notice, and Councillor Brennan as his proxy this evening. Motion to approve the agenda. Councillor Wilsey, second by Councillor Canis. All in favor? Carried. Are there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. First order of business is a delegation from Johnson Controls Canada. They'll speak on energy and infrastructure upgrade opportunities. So if I approach and identify yourself, that'd be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Joseph Meyer with Johnson Controls. Our organizations have been working together since 2020. Yeah, thank you. So we can go to the next slide. We've been talking since 2020. What we've been exploring in that time is the ESCO industry model as an alternative way that outperforms the traditional way to accomplish critical must-do energy infrastructure projects. So what I'll do is simply I'll just talk about the ESCO model, we'll talk about where we are here at Strathroy-Caradoc, and then the ask is to move forward to the next step in the process. Next slide, please. So all across the public sector, not just municipalities, the entire public sector in the country, the facility condition is worsening faster than funding can be brought in to renew the infrastructure. So things are falling apart faster than we can pay for, in short. The traditional project by project model, where we use capital budget to take a chunk at a time out, all across the public sector, we're falling behind, okay? So we need the alternative ESCO model, and this is in fact why the ESCO industry exists. We can go to the next slide. So ESCO, this is an acronym for Energy Services Company. It's a global thing, it's been around for 40 years. The federal government is the biggest utilizer of the ESCO model in Canada. They use the ESCO model exclusively to decarbonize the building stock and renew the infrastructure. You can think of an ESCO as an energy general contractor. So of all of the energy projects that are on the list that need to be accomplished, an ESCO can take a multitude of them and integrate them as one integrated project. And that's important because when we integrate it, we can accomplish three things. And all across the public sector, again, it's always a combination of these three things. Renew aging infrastructure, improve energy efficiency, or said differently, reduce energy costs, and now reduce carbon footprint and carbon costs. So not only can an ESCO own the entire process, but the entire project, but an ESCO can own the entire process, and that's what we're proposing to do here with Strathroy-Caradoc. So Johnson Controls will own everything. We can go to the next slide, please. Johnson Controls can own the entire process from concept all the way through to implementation, and thereafter into the life cycle. And what I mean by that is we can guarantee the performance outcomes. Okay, so we can own the entire project, we can own the entire process, and we can guarantee performance. That's the crux of this entire model. If we can, and what I mean when I say we can guarantee performance, I mean we can financially, contractually guarantee energy savings. So when we integrate the projects together, we know what they're going to be ahead of time, and we can put ourselves at risk to guarantee the financials of that, okay? When you can guarantee the financials, to guarantee the energy savings, now you can leverage the energy savings, and you can accomplish more than you could accomplish otherwise. So we can go to the next slide. Actually, this is a good slide right here. So the tool, yeah, we can go back one. Thank you. The tool of our industry is called the Guaranteed Performance Contract, and it simply is that we use the energy savings of the projects themselves to pay for the projects themselves, okay? I'm wondering if I should pause or if I should continue.
Once you continue, we'll ask questions at the very end.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Okay. So what's typically done is, since we have a contractually guaranteed stream of savings, which ends up being a funding stream, we can go to a financial institution and borrow the funds for the improvements. So now you're not using your capital budget necessarily, okay? And this can be traditionally from a bank, and some other examples that exist today, because this model is becoming quite popular, the Canada Infrastructure Bank and the FCM is offering funding for this as well. Okay, and then we'll talk about the FCM funding in a second. We can go to the next slide. Just so we have some anchor of what this looks like in real life, the integrated list of projects might be heating, ventilation, domestic hot water, envelope, windows, lighting projects. This is a bit of a confusing slide, but all it's saying is that there's measures on the left, and each of them have some sort of amount of savings that acts as funding. So for example, a lighting project will provide a high proportion of savings and therefore funding to fund the rest of the integrated projects. Okay, so when we bundle them together, what we'll do, we can go to the next slide, is we will match the repayment of the capital loan with the energy savings. So we're creating a budget neutral solution completely. So we have a self-funded budget neutral solution with this model. After the term of the loan, everything drops to what it otherwise would be, just without any capital repayment. You just keep the savings. We can go to the next one. Some example projects for municipalities. Now there's plenty, again, the federal government has plenty of projects. This is done in municipalities, universities, schools, hospitals, etc. We have the city of Elliott Lake and Susan Fennell in Ontario, and then we have Pictou County and a Saskatoon project as well. If you look at, it's a little hard to read, but if you look at the top, the goals are all the same, and it's all the same mix. We need to renew our infrastructure, we need to reduce our energy costs, and in many cases, we have to reduce our carbon footprint and or our carbon costs as well. And what I would say is the carbon part ends up being a byproduct of, it's certainly important, but it ends up being a byproduct of the more critical need, which is the infrastructure. We can go to the next slide. Canoe Procurement has pre-vetted both Johnson Controls and this performance contracting model. So from a municipality procurement perspective, we're all clear and we've done it in the past through this. Next slide, please. So here at Strathroy-Caradoc, we spent some time, and what we've done is taken a high-level look at 4 key buildings. We can go to the next slide. And we've taken a look at the infrastructure and the energy use, and we've tried to see how much savings we can accomplish, and we do think there's a project here that will self-fund. Up here we see the goals, and it's kind of repetitive because the goals here with the team have been the same goals as the other public sector organizations we've worked with in the past. We need to renew the infrastructure, we need to reduce energy costs, and carbon reductions as well. We can go to the next slide. So between these 4 buildings, the town hall, the police station, the arena, and the memorial center, this is an aggregate of the utility spend. So you have about $500,000 of utility spend total. And we take that and we compare it to projects that we have identified as on the table or critical. We can go to the next slide. Then we believe, and this is an estimate at this point, we believe we can self-fund $2.5 million of work with the energy spend and the savings we can find. Typically in our industry, a 15 to 20 year payback is common, and 2020 is quite common. What we see here is it's estimated we can actually hit roughly a 10-year payback. So this being an estimate, all that means is we have a high degree of confidence that there's a viable project here once we take a closer look. I should mention on the right, sorry, we'll go back in a second. On the right is the examples of projects that we've identified that will be integrated into this integrated project. So envelope improvements, lighting, HVAC, heating, ventilation, building automation controls, etc. I think there's an ice plant improvement in there as well. Okay, now some of these are critical and must be done. Some of them are actually used to fund and therefore buy more capital improvements, right? And we can do that again because we have an integrated ownership of the project. Next slide, please. This is in addition to what we can tackle in terms of critical infrastructure. We'll be able to reduce, and again, it is an estimate, we'll reduce energy spend by 23%. We'll be able to stimulate a little bit of the local economy with this project. And critically, we think we can reduce the carbon footprint by 40%. The reason that's critical and no longer a additional benefit is because if we see on the next slide, the FCM is providing funding for projects that can hit a certain threshold of carbon reductions. So we're quite confident in our initial analysis that we can hit 40% carbon reductions. The threshold's 30. So if we can hit 30, we can achieve both FCM grants and funding. Okay, so the next step in this process is we have to take, in order to be able to put ourselves as an organization at risk and to define the projects to a high degree of resolution so that we know exactly what we have on the table, we have to do what's called an investment grade audit. So that's the next step. The investment grade audit, from our organization's perspective, we don't put any markup on the audit specifically. We make our money on the project if Strathroy-Caradoc move forward eventually with a project. That's not the ask today. The ask is to move forward with the study. The study cost is $125,000, and FCM, regardless of any kind of metrics that we hit, FCM will provide 80% of that at $100,000 for the study. So the net is $25,000 for the study. If, for some reason, our initial analysis was off and we can't find the savings or the metrics or the reductions that we need, there is no obligation to move forward with any kind of implementation or the study. We can either go back to the drawing board or we can walk away. Okay, so the ask here is a project development agreement to do a study, 80% of which is funded. That's all I have.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Any questions? Go ahead, Councilor Hammer.
So if you did the audit and you found that there were savings, do we still have an opportunity at that point to not proceed? Because I heard you say if the metrics didn't work out, we didn't have to proceed. But if they did, and for some reason at that point council didn't want to proceed, are we able to stop the process?
You are. You're not obligated in any way to move forward with the project.
So all we would be obligated is the $25,000 to do the study, and then after the study, regardless of what the study shows, we can decide to proceed or not.
That's
correct?
right. You have
Okay.
you have that out yet.
Thank you.
Yeah, Councilor Brandon.
Through the mayor to our director of finance, would this project be something that could be easily incorporated into multi-year budgeting over the next couple of years?
I think this, through the chair to Councilor Brennan, so I would say that this lends itself very well to the multi-year budget from a standpoint of once we get beyond this, if we're going to project implementation, we can sort of see where that would fit in with that, and then also work on the funding model as to how we would fund it with grants and stuff.
Any other? Councilor Wilsey, then Councilor Kennis.
Two questions. My first one, is there a timeline for when we can go into the study? I realize we're just about to start our budget process. Could we delay starting the study for a few months until we've got our budget underway and discuss it more in the fall? The first question.
Yeah. Care to answer
So
that?
if the question is for me, the answer is yes. You can delay the study for a few months if necessary.
On that, the next question is, as a council, are we ready to commit a $2.5 million capital spend to do this, depending on how the study goes, with a 10-year payback? Because that's what the second part is. If we're doing this, if we're going to spend that money, we should be prepared to spend the next stage too. If we're not prepared to spend the $2.5 million if it goes forward, then the $25,000 might not be a good use of our time.
Thanks, Councilor. Councilor Kennis.
Well, just a comment first. I think it's a no-brainer if the savings are there to pay for the cost. My question, I guess, the projects or the $2.5 million of projects that are, would be done here, are they all related to the 4 buildings that you're looking at, or are they involve other things as well?
That'll be a good segue into my next question. I'll ask, how were the buildings chosen? I don't know if it was through Director Lilborn or the Director of Finance, how were the?
Through the chair to the chair, the buildings were chosen, we looked for facilities that had high consumption of energy, which the arenas, the police station, all had those high energy consumption. We can look at other buildings. I know that wastewater treatment plants were also have been entertained in other municipalities as well.
Thank you. Can I ask a question of you, Deputy Mayor, or maybe of the other 2 members of the Tri-Township Arena Board? Is this something that we could do down at Tri-Township, or is that out of our purview to either approve that or recommend it? You see something for moving forward Tri-Township? It's something to think about, Deputy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a municipally owned building. It's municipal land operated by a board. So it could be interesting, because if it works at one arena, there should be savings down there also. My question involved the 4 communities, or sorry, the 4 buildings. So the town hall, I mean, it's going to be here in 10 years. The police station, I think, is going to be proposing a almost doubling of size. So how does that fit into what you're proposing, if that's going to go under a major renovation? Again, the Gemini, I don't need to speak about that, but then the West Middlesex Memorial Center, not that we've ever talked about it at this table, but I think it previously had been talked about as to what that building looks like in the future. So 2 of the 4 buildings are undergoing potentially some change, you know, over, I'll say the next 4 years. I have no idea, it could be the next 10 years, but I just wonder how that works in, because if we, let's say we pull those 2 buildings out, then that would critically affect all your numbers for payment back. So has that been addressed?
So through the chair to Deputy Mayor, regardless if there's an addition done to the police station, doubling the size, the energy efficient items would still have to take place. That wouldn't be included as part of the renovation. So that would be in addition to the renovation if we were to take that on and remove that building from this study. Similar to West Middlesex Memorial Center, at no time am I aware that the previous council was going to get rid of the building. I think the building has been something that may be around. Again, that's not my decision, but eliminating a building out of the inventory that's well built, it does have some deficiencies from an ice rink perspective, but could be utilized as a different type of facility into the future. But again, doing renovations in that building, we're still going to need to look at ways to reduce the energy consumption, and adding on and making some additions or adjustments inside doesn't necessarily capture all of that of what the studies looked at. So hopefully that's answered your questions.
Councilor Hippel.
Thank you. Through yourself, I suppose probably to Director Lilborn. So are we able to add? So when you talked about, when you discussed that some municipalities have looked at wastewater treatment plants, obviously this is something when it comes to infrastructure issues. I mean, we've been really worried about this. It's been an issue for quite some time. So is that something that you could also add in and have looked at? Like, I know you just mentioned the Tri-Township and that would have to go and be talked through the board, but I'm not sure, is that something that perhaps you could wait to see if this was something we could add in addition to?
So through the chair to Councillor Hippel, the wastewater treatment plants were looked at from in our operation. did not have a significant impact with regards to energy consumption outside of the buildings that we are currently looking at, the 4 that we have identified. I'm not sure if we can add a 5th to the study, and I'm suggesting, you know, potentially Tri-Township Marina, if that's the situation, into that study that we're talking about, the next steps. So I will leave that to yourself to answer.
Yeah, so the answer is yes, we can add a 5th study, and this happens, iterations happen after the project development process commonly.
Okay.
As we get closer and closer and see things with a higher degree of resolution, this is a common thing to do. And we can do it in the same stepped format as possible, so we can give an estimate as to what the cost would be, and what FCM is contributing, what the likely impact is, and then we can roll it into the project development agreement as needed.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Derbyshire.
Thank you. Through you to our guest. I just wanted to know how we get to 100,000 being covered by FCM. Maybe I'm just not reading it right. Probably just some clarification just on the 80% of the funding up to 65K, and then it does say 200K for multiple as long as one building is not over 65K. So I just wondered how we're 100, like how we get to that 100,000 without within this process.
Absolutely. So those metrics you were citing were for an eventual project, and any one building in an eventual project must meet 65K. The $100,000 is strictly for the study. So there's a separated item that FCM has strictly for study, and that's just 80% for the cost of a study. And the study costs $125.
Yeah, CAO.
Perhaps, Joseph, I could ask you to explain FCM, like is it an application that we have to put in for that funding, for that 100,000? I just, to help clarify for council where that 100,000 comes from and how we access it.
So what we do is we as an organization meet the compliance metrics that are necessary for FCM, and we guide you to submit what you need for the study. As far as what payment comes out and how FCM reimburses, I don't actually know if you're putting up 125 and getting back 100, or for example, getting 100 and putting up 25. I'd have to go back on that.
Councilor Derbyshire.
So that essentially was my question. Are we actually, because when I read this, it doesn't look like we qualify for 100,000. We either qualify for 80%, which is 65 on a single building, or 200 on a multiple, as long as one of those buildings isn't over 65. So we're 25,000, I don't even think is a number that is particularly nailed down solid here today, unless you can guarantee that's only going to cost us 25,000 for the feasibility study. Then I'm definitely comfortable moving forward with it then.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's worth putting the second.
I see Director Lilborn's there, or Director of Finance, one of the two wants to chime in.
Through the chair to Councilor Derbyshire, so if you look at that feasibility study, 80% of funding up to 65 for one building, or up to 200,000 for multiple buildings. So the project that they're putting forward is 125, so it meets that 200K threshold. So they get 80%. We get 80% of the 125 in grant to do the study, and then we would be responsible for the 25,000 that isn't part of covered by that grant.
Yeah, one more, Councilor Derbyshire.
I completely understand. I was just asking for an explanation, I guess, more from here as to this is a number you put in your thing and said it's just going to cost you guys 25,000, and really and truly that's not. We don't know the formula. You know, the formula's here, but we don't even know. This here says if one of our buildings is over 65K, then it must go out and probably go to its own project. Like I read this, I didn't get I got the explanation. It said he'd have to recalculate and come back and tell us what it costs. It might cost us 100,000 to do the feasible study.
So I wonder if, I think, if Councilor Wilsey, then we'll kind of wrap it up. I got a suggestion. Right, Councilor?
Just two questions. When I look at the estimated incentives, on page 13 of it, it says that it includes 200,000 in your payback calculation, but you initially said we're only gonna get 100, so I think that 300,000 that we're gonna get from incentives is actually only 200,000, just from the math you've given us compared to what's in the document that we've discussed tonight. And then the other part that concerns me a little bit is this 2.5 million is just paying back the capital costs, and getting the capital back over 9 years. By the time we hit 9 years, we're probably going to be, the lighting controls, all of that stuff is probably gonna have to be replaced again. So all we're doing is, we're just kind of perpetuating, so that when we get there, keeping what we've got, if it's gonna last more than that, we're just spending money ahead of when we're gonna get it, because I don't know if all these upgrades, how much maintenance they're gonna take beyond that 10-year period, what their lifespan is. We don't have any of that information for a long-term investment either.
Okay. I think what we'll do with your permission, Council, I think you've heard there's enough interest, CAO, so some kind of, imagine this will be coming back to us at some point in time. We weren't asked to make a decision tonight, correct?
Correct. This is trying to introduce this concept to council, and if there are further questions and information that council is seeking, the purpose of this is sort of to introduce you to Johnson Control, introduce you to this program, and we can go from here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for the presence, appreciate it. Next is petitions. We have a petition regarding the Dell Drive sidewalk, a motion to receive the petition for information. Councillor Hippel, second by Councillor Canis. Any questions? I think we already dealt with this. All in favor of receiving the petition? Thank you. Next up is our public meeting. Motion of the public meeting be open to consider an application for an official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment for the property located at 24546 Adelaide Road in Strathroy be hereby open. Motion to open the public meeting. Councillor Pammer, second by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor? Carried. Either Tim or Jennifer. Tim, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. As you've noted, it's a property on Adelaide Road, and as the clerk brings up the PowerPoint or PDF presentation, I'll just note a few things. So the official plan amendment is to redesignate from commercial to residential. The rezoning is to rezone from commercial to a high-density residential. And if we can move to the next slide, we'll talk about the location. This is just sort of south of the Canadian Tire on the same side of Adelaide Road, so that'd be the, we'll call it the east side for everybody if we imagined Adelaide Road was north-south, which it isn't. To the west, on the opposite side of the street, is an open field. It is cropland. It is within the settlement boundary, and just to the north of that is a site that received an official plan and zoning amendment in a similar way, redesignating from commercial to residential and from future development in agriculture to residential high density. Some other important pieces to note: directly to the east of this site or northeast of this site is the residential in nature, and it is long lease housing. And to the south is agriculture, with one home just on the south side of that. But there is a gas line that runs sort of between those two. This property has, and the subject lands have an easement over the southerly portion of the property. So when we move to the next image, where it's the proposal, in fact, if you don't mind, Madam Clerk, to just move one more page, because it's a little bit bigger on the next page. You'll see that I've oriented this to just make it a little bit more challenging for you. So the Adelaide Road is at the bottom, and so this would be you can see a line running through the parking lot area, and that line running through is that easement. So the easement, the way it works is that you're not to have any habitable space, but for parked cars, that's fine. And other vehicles, I guess, not just cars. And as you can see from this plan, it's 2 buildings that are being proposed. Townhouses is kind of the way you could describe them. They're multi-dwelling buildings, stacked towns. That's the approach here, with a total of 37 units. So, sorry, 32 units. I read the coverage number, which is 37% instead of 25 for the parking, and I apologize for that. I got a little distracted there. Nonetheless, there was an open house that was done recently, and the results of that were that there were some comments about the previous use of the property, which relates to the gas line, but also its previous uses for petrochemicals and alike, gas storage. So there was an ESA 1 and 2 done. A record of site condition was not recommended during those in those reports. Our peer reviewer has looked at it and has raised some questions about that, and so we're working through that process. So those are technical comments that we would need answers on prior to bringing forward a recommendation report. There were other comments relating to technical matters such as the outflow of stormwater from the site. With this additional coverage on the property, staff have asked about an outlet from this property. And so we're working with the applicants on that matter. It may be resolved for that one to be a hold placed on the property. So I raised that at this stage, just so that you're aware of that possibility at the public meeting stage, so that if it does come up during the process. But that would be a hold until we could determine a stormwater outlet for the site. In terms of details on policy and alike, those are found in the report. I'm happy to run through any questions that council may have about any of those pieces during the process. There was one item in the policy sections or 2, I guess, that I'd like to bring up. One is that the province, as well as the official plans, encourage intensification, and so we're seeing a development proposal here that is more intense than the properties to the west of the site, or sorry, east of the site. And it may be worth mentioning that about 25 years ago, give or take, an application for a vacant land condominium was proposed on the site. It was for single detached homes. Once they determined that they had an issue with an easement and alike, it was determined that that application wouldn't go forward, and it was abandoned. And now we're seeing a new version, and possibly as a result of that encouragement for intensification that wasn't there in the past. That's what I would like to speak on policy perspective. Happy to as I say, speak further on that subject. But the last piece is the open house. There was a comment made from one of the members of, thank you for advancing it. That's exactly what I needed. We've talked about the stormwater management outlet, the servicing capacity. There was a noise study that's underway, the noise study was done. It's just underway in terms of a review, and that hasn't been done. I mentioned the geotechnical questions on soil quality is being worked out. But one of the questions that was raised at the open house was I think the words were, how would this have come forward as it has, given that that person was interested in the property and they were told by their real estate agent that that this couldn't happen. And I think there are two pieces, and one of it is timing. So some of the submission materials that are provided tonight for this application, it's a complete application, and all of the submission materials are appropriate for the application, but two items aren't included because they're done by the municipality. So as part of the comprehensive review and looking at the settlement boundary expansion, the municipality prepared a land needs assessment for residential and found that there's a need for additional residential. That would have normally been done by the applicant in this case, but since it's already been done by the municipality, it doesn't seem necessary to do it twice. And the same thing occurred with the commercial. A commercial land needs assessment was done, and it was found that there's surplus commercial lands within the community. And so those two reports are not being completed by this particular applicant. And this is the same situation that occurred just up the road when the Carroll and Adelaide Road site received its application, as well as ones on Albert Street. There were two surrounding the Strathmere Lodge. One was directly on the street. We referred to it at that time as 599 Albert. It was an apartment building. And then the subdivision to the west. Those were properties that were designated something other than residential and were designated then residential. There's a fifth site that has a similar sort of condition, we'll call it, and that is part of the Strathmere Crossings. It's a property that the application is in, and an open house has occurred for two apartment buildings, approximately 160 apartment units, sorry. And it's also asking the same thing as we're talking about tonight with conversion of commercial lands for residential purposes. Why am I talking about all sorts of other sites other than the site that we're talking about tonight? I just want to give you that context and understanding, and it was an item that I believe tonight, despite the fact that that person who asked this question during the open house isn't here. They may be listening, or they may listen to it in the future, and so I wanted to give them that opportunity to hear that full sort of scope, the greater context of applications that are happening in the area, as well as the fact that there are comprehensive review items that are happening within the municipality that this particular application, as well as those other applications, have utilized in their applications. So I think I can leave it at that. At this point, I will note that the applicant and owner is here tonight as well.
Thank you. We'll go to the public first, Councilor. So are there any comments in support of the proposed rezoning? Okay, thank you. Please identify yourself.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of council. My name is Mike Davis. I'm a partner with Civic Planning and Design in London. I'm here representing our clients, Boldhaven Developments. I also have Todd and Ashraf, representatives of the development team, here with me this evening. They're the owners and developers of this project at 24546 Adelaide Road. I think Mr. Williams has provided you with a really good kind of synopsis of an overview of the applications and the project itself. I want to thank him obviously for his work in preparing the report and bringing it forward this evening. I'll just be super brief with my comments, but just for the benefit of council, I think want to highlight a few points about the project and the process that's been undertaken in conceiving this project. There was a slide shown. This is a series of just one of basically 4 properties that fronts on Adelaide Road, kind of at the southern gateway of Strathroy, west of the Twin Elm Estates community and south of Canadian Tire. And this site, it's vacant now from what we understood from the background work we've carried out. It, at a point in time, was used for bulk fuel storage. All of those structures, that use were removed kind of early 2000s, and it's really been kind of in its current state since that time. And so what we see here is really an interesting opportunity to repurpose what's now a kind of a vacant brownfield site for something that is an identified community need, that being new housing options. And we understand that the municipality has a strategic plan. Part of that is a strategy to address housing affordability in the municipality, and a key kind of plank being support for provision of alternative and more attainable housing options. This is a form of development, dwelling type, that we think will help address the need in Strathroy for more diversity in the type and form of housing that's available to folks. As Mr. William touched on, the concept plan is for 2 new stacked townhouse buildings. That would include a total of 32 units. Each of those units would be 2-bedroom units. We have 49 parking stalls. Each would have a combination of there'd be an outdoor balcony or patio space, along with a larger shared common amenity space kind of between the 2 buildings. As Mr. Williams touched on, a key component of this application, and obviously the ask to council, is to redesignate the lands from their current commercial designation to a residential designation. In this case, I mean, timing is part of it. There's a number of factors which actually support currently changing the designation of these lands from commercial to residential, particularly the findings and conclusions of your own regional commercial system study that was prepared as part of the comprehensive review. There is, based on our understanding, a surplus of designated commercial lands in the Strathroy settlement area, approximately 16 hectares. This site is just over 0.4 hectares, so kind of represents a fairly small and manageable piece of that overall pie. We're not kind of taking up all of that 16 hectares in one shot here. This is a small piece of the pie. Appreciate all of your time and kind of consideration this evening. I'll be available to answer any questions of council if of interest.
Thank you. Are there any comments in opposition? Seeing none, are any questions from council? I saw that Councillor Hippel had a question.
Thank you, through yourself to Tim Williams. So if we were to go ahead tonight and say that we were going to switch it from commercial to residential, and they still don't have a good idea of how they're going to have an outlet for their stormwater, and what they're suggesting doesn't work out well, I guess what I'm saying, like, that concerns me. That's huge. That's a really big deal. So is this something that would perhaps put a bit of a stall to the change tonight?
So I'm gonna break the question down into 2 parts. One, just to confirm that tonight is the public open house, or public statutory public meeting, so a decision doesn't necessarily have to be made. But I believe you were going theoretically when you were speaking that way, so I just thought I would start there. But then move to, we have some work to do with the applicant between now and then to narrow that so that the gap isn't so large that nothing could happen. It's more of a situation where, does it need to happen in a different way? How are we going to deal with those things? What are the potential options for that connection? Is it a connection that's, you know, going to hit the Trout Creek tributary there, or is it a situation where we need to have it go up to the newly created municipal drain, or is it something else? You know, all of those things would have implications, and so we need to look at that and see how these things will work. The site at the moment doesn't have buildings on it, so we don't have the same level of concern, right? But does that mean that nothing should be ever allowed to happen here? No, maybe it's a situation where there does. I will say that the application came in with a proposal for infiltration. The concern that we have is that infiltration has limitations, and so what we want to look at is maybe there are other options as well.
Thanks.
Councillor Woolsey, then Councillor Canis.
Through the mayor, I think to the either to Tim Williams or the developer. On a lot of the other gateway projects we've looked at, the settlement boundary and the other development proposals, we've heard a lot of developers talk about mixed use. to being able to have a commercial and residential in the same building, at least on the ones fronting the main artery. Is that something that would be considered here, which would maybe get us at least some more commercial, or having an entrance or something for the gateway?
I guess that'll be for, yes, correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I think one, a valid, consideration, and obviously something we're kind of seeing as a development team. Obviously, the property right now is zoned C1 commercial. It's the exact same zone that is applied to your downtown core area. This segment of kind of 4 properties here is a very much an anomaly in terms of the C1 zone is intended to apply to lands in the downtown core, which, as per the official plan, is meant to be the kind of focus for more urban, compact, kind of mixed use and commercial development of that nature. So being in this location, obviously, there has been, we have done a number of kind of background feasibility studies to look at, like, how can we create a viable project and something that we can secure financing for and move forward on. There are some challenges in terms of the site's suitability currently to attract the right type of tenants for a mixed-use scenario. The mixed-use building in this location, obviously with the surplus of commercial lands you have designated for auto-oriented types of users, the national tenants are less likely and less kind of open-minded currently to a mixed-use configuration in this particular location in town. So it has been, I would say, a struggle. That has been a struggle in our initial kind of exploration of that option. It is an option that we strongly kind of considered. Where we see the path forward to creating a viable project is really around this more compact, kind of attainable form of housing, which would conceivably be rental housing. It is an attractive option. There's a demonstrated kind of need, and it's something that through insured programs through CMHC would be able to secure financing in short order to move forward.
Thank you. Councillor Caddis, then Councillor Bammer.
Yeah, just a comment. I'm very much in favor of projects like this, especially it was just mentioned looking at as potentially a rental, multifamily, higher density, and so I think, again, that's something this community needs, and yeah, look forward to seeing the project.
Councillor Bammer.
Yeah, I would just echo Councillor Kennis's comments that, I could be wrong, but I feel like this is the first rental project we've seen that's not designated, at least for seniors. So that's really, really exciting, because that's a well-needed niche in the community. We haven't seen any rentals that I can recall in any proposed subdivision. So, and just a reminder that there's a lot of other stuff happening, in this corner over here. We have the other proposal for the high rises. There's a lot of growth here. So I think it looks like a really good fit. I know that you mentioned sidewalks, and I just want to be sure that we're talking about a sidewalk that would go from the property and link all the way up to the sidewalk at Twin Elms. It would have to cross 2 other vacant properties essentially, but that it would be give people a safe path, because this is, I know it's 50 kilometers, but it's coming right off the highway. So we want to make sure that that's a safe path for walking. So that's just one question I had about the sidewalk. And the other, because it is sort of an entry, and I think the report said it was the front building would face the road. So I'm presuming if we were to proceed, we'd see a little more detail about would there be some landscaping or just what that might look like in terms of being an entry site into the community too. We want to make sure that it looks good and it's, welcoming and, yeah, not an eyesore.
I think the deputy mayor, then you, Councillor.
Can you answer my question?
Oh, yeah, sorry, yep.
Through the mayor, so the sidewalks was the question. The answer is we look to have what we can ask of a developer is to construct the sidewalk in front of their property. To have them construct a sidewalk from their property to other properties, that would be an ask of them, not a tell of them, if I can say that. On the property, the design that they have now does show that sidewalk extending to their driveway and then leading to the different buildings as well. So we've got a good start. It's certainly hear what you have to say, and that can be a conversation between engineering staff as well to understand what we're looking at in a bigger picture, as well as the county and with the developer. So hear your comment.
Deputy Mayor, then Councilor Derbyshire.
Thank you, Your Worship. We've seen these type of asks come before council before, where we've worked through projects and nothing transpires. So my question is on this, where an ask is coming to us for zoning bylaw amendment, is there truly a proposal to try to have something built on this property? Or is this more of a fishing expedition to see, are we moving? And I'm not sure if our presenter is even able to answer that, but I'd just like to know when we're doing this that there's actually something going on. To staff on that point, when we do these type of changes, can they be time restricted? So you put, it has to occur within the next X amount of years, or you have to reapply for the zoning bylaw. So 2 questions.
I guess the last, Tim or the presenter, to answer the one.
I always let someone else go first, and I'm happy to answer the second half of the question about the temporary zoning.
Thanks for the question, and through you, Mr. Chair. I'm wearing 2 hats here. So one, obviously representing my clients here this evening, Boldhaven Developments, about this specific site. And yes, fully their intention here is to build. Obviously there was a question there about the kind of mixed-use project. We've done a lot of feasibility study in the background to determine what is the path forward here to getting something built. We believe this is the strongest path forward. That's fully the intent of this team. On the second question, I'm putting my professional planner hat on. Your question about what tools are available for the municipality to ensure something moves forward, or is there an expiration date? The province of Ontario has in the process of rolling out some new tools that are tied to that, would not necessarily come into play at the zoning bylaw amendment stage, more so at the next step, site plan approval, and really it ties to servicing allocations and capacities. There's projects that get site plan approval, they're kind of on the books and tying up infrastructure and servicing capacity while just being kind of on paper and not getting built. There are tools coming that will support municipalities in that kind of objective, just not quite at this stage. It's just at the zoning bylaw amendment stage, those tools are not available.
Did you want to add to that at all?
I was going to use the word motivate the developer to move forward at a site plan stage by having a sunset clause on any site plan application, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it would revert back to commercial zoning or those sorts of things. Those are, at this stage anyway, permanent until changed.
Councilor Derbyshire.
Thank you. Through you to probably the developer, but I'm just going to say I'm not opposed to the project itself. When I look at the location of where it is, and then I hear that you're looking to rent possibly to families as a rental thing, it seems like it's in the middle of nowhere. I don't see a park on here anywhere for kids that are possibly going to play. You have a major highway out in front of you, which I know is reduced to 50. You're going to have a sidewalk that stops nowhere, and you essentially have a senior living behind you. So to me, I could understand if the 4 lots all got together and this was gonna be more like a 4 kind of stage of all of them together with a park in the middle, and you kind of get yourself a little community set up. But I mean, if you just have this out in the middle of nowhere and then those last 3 go back to commercial or something else, I mean, the family rental thing, these kids are gonna have absolutely nothing to do. That, I guess, is more my comment on that. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe there is a park somewhere in here, but that's my concern with this here, and that would be it.
Okay. Any comment? Okay, seeing none, I'll make my last comment. be more to the developers and Councillor Pammer's about ask rather than tell. There's a lot of rain this weekend, so I read Hazel McCallion's autobiography, and she said just keep asking until you get it. So we may keep asking until we get it. So, motion that the public meeting to consider an application for an official plan amendment be hereby closed. Councillor Brennan, second by Councillor Hippel. All in favor? Carried. The second motion is that the subject report BBP-2024-68 for official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment be received for information. Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Kennis. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you for the report, gentlemen. It's appreciated. Next, we'll move to approval of minutes. You have two minutes to be in front of you to be approved. One from the regular council meeting of June 17th. The second is the special council meeting minutes of June 24th. Motion to approve those minutes. Councillor Kennis, second by the Deputy Mayor. Any questions, errors, or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. There are 5 communications in front of you before we vote to receive them. Anybody wish to pull any communication? Okay. Seeing none, the council received the communication items for information. Someone bring the motion. Councillor Kennis, second by Deputy Mayor. All in favor? Carried. Next is reports from departments, legal and legislative services, appointments to the Strathroy-Caradoc Fire Services Advisory Board. Motion to receive the report. Councillor Pammer, second by Councillor Brennan. All in favor of receiving it? Carried. Yep, okay.
Thank you, Chair. Just quickly, members do have a report before them. This is in regards to the appointments to the Strathroy-Caradoc Fire Services Advisory Committee. Striking Committee did meet and are recommending the appointment of Scott Barker, Jane Brunig, and council representatives, the Deputy Mayor, in accordance with the terms of reference, and Councillors Hippel and Brennan. There is an updated, amendment to the municipality's appointments to boards and committees bylaw, also on consideration for council's agenda this evening.
Okay. We'll start with the motion first. The council concurs with the striking committee's recommendations to appoint Scott Barker, Jane Brunig, Deputy Mayor Mike McGuire, Councillor Sandy Hippel, and Councillor John Brennan to the Fire Services Committee for the balance of this council term. So I'm going to bring the motion first. Councillor Kennis, second by Councillor Pammer. Any questions? Okay. Councillor Derbyshire. Sorry, I apologize. Got a drink of water here.
That's okay. I will, I'm almost at a loss to where to start. I'll just start with, I thought the striking committee met in open council. I didn't realize that they went to closed council to make those decisions. And when we come to the terms of reference, I believe, were created by the deputy fire chief, and some of his recommendations were experience and knowledge. So if that changed throughout the course of this thing, I would just ask why that changed. Another question is, why did the striking committee go into closed council and not come back out after having their discussion and then decide what members they were going to do? And I'm not too sure who these go to for now, but that would be the first two I kind of can start with here.
Any comments? I'll tackle the first one, Councillor Derbyshire. With terms of going into closed session under the Municipal Act, it's an identifiable individual, and you're having conversations about identifiable individuals, so it seemed prudent with the clerk in consultation to have those discussions in closed session. So as the chair, I can explain that one. Yeah, Councillor.
The other striking committee, when you guys struck everything else though, didn't go to closed. You had discussions about people, where they should go, who was going where. So I just am trying to figure out why it changed, considering the striking committee's always been open.
Yeah, and I don't mind as chair answering that one, Counselor, because as chair of the original striking committee, it was rather uncomfortable to talk about people in open session, and probably in hindsight, those discussions should have been in closed session. I can tell you, talking to clerks and mayors and other municipalities, all their striking committee sessions are done in closed session. So we just follow the municipal act on that one. Okay, and any other comments, concerns?
You get a second question.
Yeah, I'm just following up. Yep, second question.
What's that?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I guess my second part to that was that with the terms and conditions that were kind of, the terms of reference that were set forward and voted on by this council, how did it change, or how did we come up with where we went in closed meetings to be that essentially we wanted nobody with any experience? How did we go from a recommendation of our deputy fire chief that said it's recommended that we have some experience on here, to now we're going to pick nobody with experience?
Councilor Brennan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I imagine people interpret the terms of reference differently when we look at the word experience. Since this is a community advisory board, my approach has always been that we want people with, as it says in the terms of reference under Section 7, the candidate's background and experience to ensure a committee environment focus on a broad perspective of the fire services and the candidate's potential to contribute to the ongoing development and support of fire services and the specific needs of special projects and operations. We're looking for community input from the outside in, and it just seemed to me that the broad perspective required was met by the two candidates that we went to, as opposed to perhaps individuals with a very specific viewpoint from their experiences within fire services. We do have the ability to form subcommittees if we need to have technical information from individuals, and that may happen. But my interpretation of the terms of reference is that the committee met that by providing candidates with a broad perspective, and they would be able to fulfill the function of taking community advice and providing that to the Fire Advisory Board, which would then, as an advisory body, then send their recommendations to council. So I reject the claim of some people that we changed the terms of reference, where I think we just interpreted them in a manner that is much more broad than some people previously imagined.
We'll go to Councilor Wilson.
So with that, accepting that we now have people with no technical experience, sure they're fun, nothing against people. I know some of them personally. I got no issues with the people who are on the board, but with being chosen or having no experience, and Councilor Brennan's comments about if there's anything technical that we'll be doing, that subcommittees can be done with people with experience, will we be limiting the scope of the discussions of the advisory board to anything that's being non-technical? So for example, they're not going to talk about specific equipment or how to service a fire or all of those things, because none of those people have any experience. So anything like that that has to do with technical or operations or changes to how we do that will all be done by a subcommittee now, I believe. If that's what I've heard, I think we should update the terms of reference to do that.
I think Councilor Brennan, and I can jump into.
Yeah, I'd like to respond. The individuals that we selected do have a great deal of experience in community affairs and working in decision-making capacities. So they have a great deal of committee experience. So they do not have technical experience within fire services. But if we take a look at the terms of the Fire Service Advisory Committee, it says the Fire Service Committee is not responsible for the day-to-day operations, including operational response, facilities and programs, and it's not responsible for administrative matters including directions to staff and regular maintenance of properties or planning issues or budget and capital projects and issues. And like, these are not the responsibility of the Fire Service Advisory Committee. The deep technical knowledge that some people may possess is not necessarily the most important item to be a member of this committee that's designed to provide community input to council on the fire services.
Councillor Pammer.
Yeah, when I read the goals and objectives, reviewing it again, you know, it states pretty clearly that it's to get maximum community input and discussion, to encourage maximum community input and discussion. So that to me says we need a breadth of experience on the board. Also here it says that their deliverables will be providing comments upon request to staff or council on potential. The committee may recommend to staff or council that an issue of importance to the community be considered. So again, I agree with Councillor Brennan that we really, to me, it says we want like a well-rounded committee, not just people with technical or fire experience, but we want just well-experienced community members.
Any other questions? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. As a member of the striking committee, I had to struggle with the concept before we walked into the meeting. It's been well said by Councillor Brennan and Councillor Pammer as to what the Fire Services Board objective is and what their duties are and what their duties are not. This is not a board to have people sitting there that are wanting to go toe-to-toe with the administration of the fire department on operational issues. It's not the function of the Fire Services Advisory Board. The province, I'm aware, under the new act for policing, the province has talked about the concept of having police officers with previous police experience sit on police services boards. And under the new legislation for policing, it is prohibited. And it's prohibited because over 20 years of discussions on these points, the government has decided that that is not the function of police service boards. And although their purposes are legislatively different, the concept is similar. We are, the Fire Services Board, sitting as a committee of council. So the Fire Services Board need not any more expertise in fire services than any council member that's asking the question right now. It's a committee of council. It's to report back to council about discussions that may take many hours to fully understand, where council simply would never have those multiple hours to listen. And that's exactly the conversation I had with the chief when the concept came about many months ago. He has incredible ideas and concepts that will never have the time in front of this council to be fleshed out. But they will be time put aside by a Fire Services Board, and those board members collectively will make their discussions, recommendations, thoughts known up to council, and then we can either accept them or not accept them or discuss them accordingly. So it's not an operational board at all. And for me, that's exactly where my mind went when I was sitting on the striking committee.
Yeah, one more question. Go, Councillor Wilsey, then you, Councillor Derbyshire, and I'll bring it to a vote.
So, I guess just to be clear on that, then this is really just for getting ideas. We're not going to be coming forward with any technical things. We're not going to be coming forward saying, hey, we need more fire engines, because this is just community input. We're not going to be coming forward and saying we need full-time firefighters. You might say the community would like them, but we're not going to come forward and saying we're going to get them. The other part is you keep talking about the chief, and the chief having ideas and talking about, we have our current chief in the room. So I just want to make sure who we're talking about when we talk about the chief on this board, because I thought our chief was in the room right now.
That he is, and that's why I'm going to discussions. Whoever is in command at the time, I'm going to suggest to the fire department is who will be at the board.
And just listening to the deputy mayor's comments, he's not, it doesn't sound like he's talking about the chief that's in the room, which I just
The deputy chief is in the room.
Deputy chief is in the room.
Unless he's been recently promoted, in which case I'd congratulate you, but I'm not aware that he has.
He has, because the other one's laid off.
No.
He's our fire chief.
No, he's not. He's your
Well,
deputy
whatever
chief.
he's on, but he is the acting chief.
We're not gonna talk, the purpose, we're gonna talk about.
I was speaking
The
with
purpose is you're
Chief
talking
Brent
about
Smith.
chief. That's the,
Right,
but that's the
right.
problem. You're talking about somebody who's on leave.
Right, no, we're not gonna talk about individuals. Thank you. Deputy Mayor, did you want to continue?
I would just wanted to say, I was asked a question who I spoke with. I spoke with Chief Brent Smith.
Yep, okay. All right, so we have the motion. I think we're out of questions. We have a second motion.
Can I just say something here?
Sure.
Are we advising, because you're calling yourself the Fire Service Advisory, are you advising the community or are you advising council? Who are you advising?
I would suggest we're advising council through the chief and through the communities. We're listening to both, not unlike CDAC, I would suggest, so.
So should we now put this in place for engineering and roads? So everyone has their own committee, so that they have an advisory council for the road department and the engineering, so that they can get community input and have council input? Like CDAC is there because CDAC is for the community, about things they want to do. This, if you're gonna just be about the community, then make a board, sit with the association who is in charge of turkey bingos, Santa at the fire halls, parades, community engagement is what the association does. So that's what I don't understand here when you're saying like, oh, we're engaging with the community and we're bringing it back to council and this and that, but you're not gonna be into anything technical or deal with anything. Like the concept of this board, I don't understand it.
Okay, we'll take the vote. We had it, we had the discussion, we'll take the vote. We have a second motion that council concurs with the striking committee's recommendation to appoint Scott Barker, Jane Brunick, Deputy Mayor Mike McGuire, Councillor Sandy Hippel, and Councillor John Brennan to the Fire Services Advisory Committee for the balance of this term. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Second motion is that council forward bylaw number 61-24, amending the municipality's appointments to boards and committees bylaw to the consideration of bylaws section of the agenda. Someone can bring the motion. Councillor Kenneth, second by Deputy Mayor. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Animal Control Services Contract Tender Award. Oh, sorry, Bo, had my head down to read.
That's okay. Just before we leave that last one, I'm not gonna talk about your board or your committee, but I did have a conversation today with the,
Councilor Derbyshire, if it's not on the agenda, we'll follow through on the agenda, okay?
but I do believe that what happened here with speaking to the chief,
No, Councilor Derbyshire, it's not on the agenda. We're gonna go through on.
but it was referred to and I wasn't allowed to elaborate
We've gone through
on it.
that item.
Okay, I'll wait till
We've
inquiries.
gone through the items, thank you. The motion to receive the report on the Animal Control Services contract. Councilor Brennan, second by Councilor Palmer, all in favor? Carried. Did you want to speak to anybody want to speak to the report? Yep, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So as council may recall, this is actually the second time that we've had to post the request for tender for animal control services. The first one posted earlier this year resulted in no bids. And we now have one bid from our current provider, Animal Care Center Lobo. As you'll see in the report, they have been experiencing increasing expenses with the program, which has led them to increase a much higher bid. A bid that's much higher than the contract price we've had since 2018. There is a recommendation from staff that we do enter into direct negotiation with Animal Care Center Lobo. This is where staff are looking for direction from members of council as to whether there's any interest in a reduction of service or exploring cost reduction, or if there are certain service levels that you would like to maintain. But their current recommendation now is to see if there's any interest in entering into direct negotiation with Animal Care Center Lobo.
Any questions? Councilor Palmer.
Yeah, I'd be interested in seeing some different options, since I don't really have a good understanding of how much we utilize the service. So to just go into contract for $150,000 a year, you know, I guess I don't really understand how often we use those services and what we use their services for. So I think that would be helpful to make a decision. And also, obviously, it's a huge jump. So looking at the different, you make a note here that we could look at different pricing structures, like fee per service, or, you know, doing emergency response, etc. Just as you noted in the report, I'd like to see some of those options and what they look like.
Okay, any follow-up, Councillor Hippel, then Councillor Cass.
Through yourself, it's just a comment, and so I'm in agreement with Councillor Pammer. But my concern is that we said that it jumped quite a bit from 2018. Well, it is 2024, so I mean, that's an obvious right there. I mean, we know that it's gonna get higher and everything's more expensive. But it is, I was also wondering how often it's used. I think it's important because I get phone calls about different things, animal care and control quite a bit. Not out in the country, but more inside the urban areas. But saying that, I mean, we've done this a couple of times and we haven't had any bidders, and we've only had one bidder. And I mean, I think that we've used Lobo or Animal Care Center Lobo, whatever, Lobo. We've used them for a long time, and they're good. They're a good business, and they're a good part of our municipality when they work with us. So I would hate to keep trying at the same time, because obviously nobody else wants this. It isn't in their purview. So I would love to see the conversation to come back to us on how often we use it, what we're using it for, and just a couple of different options, because I really don't see us going anywhere else, but at the same time it would be nice to have a bit of a breakdown.
Councillor Kennis and the Deputy Mayor.
I agree with what the other two councillors were saying. I think we've been using these folks or previous owners of this business for at least 30 years, and but I'm curious as to what other municipalities are doing as well in this area, and I expect all of them are in sort of the same position. So I don't know if somehow collectively we can come up with some sort of solution. And I agree. I think we need a better idea of what animal control involves and what's our responsibility when it comes to that whole area. So.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
I'll expand upon Councillor Kennis's comment. So I agree. I'm not in favor of going back and having direct conversation with one group. We put it out for tender. We're still not happy. So I think I would make the motion that we refer this back to council for a report about what other communities are doing.
Back to staff.
Or sorry, back to what I said, back to council.
Back to council.
Yeah,
Not getting ready
to bring it back to council. Refer it back to staff for a report about what other communities are doing, what options are out there. We can decide what it is we want to do with that and then retender it. And that may or may not mean that we need to do the 12.5 for a couple of months in order to carry it forth. I see heads nodding that perhaps that's where staff would want to go, but perhaps the CAO can comment if this motion to refer this back to staff carries.
Yeah, someone, yep, sorry, CAO.
If I could, yes, I think to ensure that we have a continuation of service till we can get that report back, I do recommend that as the director has put in the report, that 12, it's on the second page, I believe, on the 12.5, 12,500, just to get us through till we can get this report back and to ensure that we have services being provided.
You add that to your motion.
Yeah, so a motion to refer it back to staff for exploration of what other communities are doing. And further, that council approve an interim contract extension rate with Animal Care Center Lobo of $12,500, excluding HST, per month for July and August 2024, while options are investigated.
Okay, somebody to second your motion. Councillor Brennan, any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Community Services, Station 2 and 3 Indoor Air Quality Report. Motion to receive the report. Councillor Brennan, second by Councillor Pammer. All in favor? Carried. I'm not sure if Deputy Chief or Director Lilborn was going to speak to the report.
Thank you, Your Worship. Members of Council, it's been almost a year since we've been working on the indoor air quality at the fire stations here in Strathroy-Caradoc. The latest report that was brought to Council on May 21st, 2024 showed some significant improvements in the overall air quality in stations 2 and 3. There was a list of recommendations in that report, and they're also, I've captured them in this report in a table as well. The recommendation chart continues to show an emphasis on the separation of the bunker gear. Now, staff do believe, because of the overall success that we've had with reducing that the bad air within in the stations and in improving the overall air quality, that before we go down, revisit that scenario of separation of bunker gear, that we at least consider the installation of exhaust fans in Station 2, set up on a timer to run 30 on, 30 off, and also install a timer in Station 3 where there's already an exhaust fan with fresh air intake louvers to run 30 on, 30 off. Now, the other item that has come up with the health and safety committees at the stations is the lack of showers in Station 2 and the lack of washing machines for personal laundry at Stations 2 and 3. So although it's not identified in the indoor air quality report, staff felt it was important to bring forward to Council for consideration in going out and getting formal quotations for the installation of exhaust fans and timers, as well as showers in Station 2 and washing machines in Station 2 and 3. So I am available for any questions, should Council have any.
Any questions of Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. So through you, probably to the Deputy Chief, but why washers and dryers for personal laundry as opposed to, I think we already have laundry facilities for your professional gear. So the personal laundry, what and why?
Yeah, through the chair to the Deputy Mayor. It's obviously if you're involved in structural firefighting, you're in the interior, the street clothes that you're wearing are going to become somewhat contaminated, if only from the sweat and everything else. And potentially the contamination is absorbed through the PPE to some degree. It's so as you can wash that, your personal street clothes that you were wearing when you attended that fire. We now have a policy in place that they keep a second set of clean clothing, so they would come back, shower, launder their clothing at the station, so as they are not then taking that potentially contaminated street clothing home. That's the reason for that.
Yeah, follow Deputy Mayor.
I was of the understanding that the members attended the station, put on their bunker gear, and then attended the scene. Are we still having firefighters attend the scene in street clothes? Or are we talking undergarments?
No, through the chair to the Deputy Mayor. No, it's the clothes that they arrive at the station in. They don't take their clothes off and put their bunker gear on. Their street clothes, they get into their bunker gear and they'll go to the fire.
Okay. And those street clothes are not washed in the bunker gear?
Any instructors, no.
Is there a reason why they couldn't?
I'd have to look at the specifications of the machines to give you a precise answer on that. The reason is that they would be tied up washing the PPE as required.
Yep. Councilor Derbyshire.
Sorry, I can answer that. The machines are actually designed to do that rough, coarse bunker gear. It would actually shred your normal clothes. So they are actually designed, and the explanation is when you run into the fire hall, you pull your gear over top of your clothes, that's why they're saying this should all come off. Basically, you'd go down to your skivvies, shower, and then put on a second set of clothes and leave the fire hall, so.
Thanks for that. Any other questions? Yeah, one more, sorry.
Sorry, I was gonna say, one of my concerns though with the washer and dryer would be at Station 3 where it only has a holding tank as opposed to hooked into anything of any real substance, which would then add to more cost for the pumping out. So, not that I'm opposed to it, and then with the washer and dryers or the showers at Station 2, do we somewhat have a plan for an expansion? Because I'm assuming we would have to expand unless you think they could be internally installed somewhere in that hall.
Through the chair to Councillor Derbyshire, we do have a plan to house them internally. There is space in the hall with some minor adjustments with regards to plumbing and such, that we'd be able to make it work.
Thank you.
Okay, any other? Councillor Wilsey.
Just budget-wise, we spent most of the reserves and everything we had on the fire hall. How are we? I realize these probably aren't huge expenses and related to the budget, but where is the money going to come from for that?
Director Dakin, that's a fair question. Director Dakin.
Through the chair to Councillor Wilsey, I'll have to get back to you on that one. At this stage, I would say that the switches for the fans would be under their building maintenance piece, but I think for the renovations, once we get those tenders back, we'd have to then decide, the extent of that work and where we're going to pull that funds from.
CAO.
And through to council, just wanted to make clear, council's not approving the work to be completed. You're approving staff to get quotations for it, and then we'll come back with another report containing what the cost is and then the recommendation at that time.
Okay, any other? Yep, Deputy Mayor, then we'll bring it to a vote.
Yeah, thank you. So if we're going to get another report, perhaps it could include these comments. So we have a firefighter gets a call, he goes to the fire hall, he throws his bunker gear on top of what he's currently wearing. First question would be, so do all the firefighters keep a complete second set of street clothes at the hall?
Yeah.
They all do, so like blue jeans and a t-shirt and stuff, so that's all kept there. Okay, and then, can we have a breakdown of cost? I mean, if you've dirtied your clothes in the performance of your duty, by all means, we'll take responsibility, or I would anyways, agree to take responsibilities to have it clean, but is it cheaper and easier to send it out for laundry? I mean, you put it in a garbage bag, label it, and send it out and launder it? Because who's gonna stand there and launder it? Who's doing that? Because you're done a fire, you're putting on your new jeans, socks, and you're jumping in your truck, you're heading home for dinner, or you're going home to sleep. You're going somewhere. You're not sitting around for an hour and a half to launder your clothes. So it's not the $2,000 for the washer and dryer. That's not the issue. I don't see how this is going to function. And I think Councillor Derbyshire makes a good point. I don't think it will function down at Station 3 because you have a holding tank. That's a whole nother problem. So that's going to be laundered off-site anyway. So just how that would occur, what the firefighters want to have happen, I'd like more information on that, even though it's a minor amount of money.
Fair enough. And just to correct you, Deputy Mayor, you did mean to say when he or she jumps in their truck to attend a fire?
Did I say he? Pardon me. When she jumps in her truck and drives home.
Yep. So we have two motions that council directs staff to proceed with conducting a formal quotation for the installation of the exhaust fan, Station 2, along with the appropriate timers. And further, the council directs staff to proceed with conducting a formal quotation for the complete installation of showers in Station 2, as well as washer and dryers for Station 2 and 3. And I think if you want to add an amendment to that.
Yeah, I was going to say, can we do an amendment to the end of that, saying, or other options for laundry? I don't need to expand upon it. I think I already did.
Okay. Someone to bring the motion. Councillor Kennis, second by Councillor Palmer. All in favor? Carried. Commercial autonomous mower. Motion to receive the report. Councillor Brandon, Second by Councillor Kennis, all in favor? Carried. Director Littleborn.
Thank you, Your Worship. Staff have been working, trying to find ways where we can maintain or improve our level of service without increasing our headcount. This autonomous lawnmower that we've been trialing now for about 4 weeks seems to be a promising solution for us. It's maintaining a higher quality of field, so we're cutting the grass right now at an 1.5 inches, where we typically cut it at about 2.5 inches. The soccer club, the Strathroy United Football Club, very much appreciates the efforts that our staff are putting forward to improve the playing surfaces for them, to the point where they have asked if we would be willing to have a conversation about how we can go about keeping that autonomous mower on site. I've received an email from them, as identified in my report, saying that they're prepared financially to contribute to maintaining that mower here in Strathroy. It can be set up, right now it's operating on 1 field, but it can be set up to operate on 2. We'll be able to keep both fields at 1.5 inches. The mower itself is fully GPS, so if someone does want to try to come and pick up this very large object, and it's very large, I don't know if anybody's driven by the soccer fields, it would alarm and would notify us that it's not where it's supposed to be. It has GPS, so it would tell us where it's going. So we'd be able to find it. And it would be rendered useless once it leaves the playing surface. So it would have no value to someone who decided to try to take it and pocket it, per se. So anyway, there's the report in front of you. It's outlined some of the benefits with regards to autonomous mowers, as well as the comments that we received from the Strathroy United Football Club as well. I'm available for questions should you have any.
Councillor Wilson.
Couple of questions. Will it be staying in the same place, or is there going to be extra cost for running power to it? And as far as the cost, you say it's less than 40,000, and the PTP covers half the cost of any more. How much would be left in the PTP fund if this were approved?
Through the chair to Councillor Wilsey, the hydros currently run to it, so there would be minimal cost associated with that if we needed to relocate it. The funds with regards to PTP, there would be $20,000 remaining in that fund, should council choose to fund this project.
Councillor Wilsey.
Then just one follow-up on the payback. So it looks like a $40,000 mower to mow 2 fields. Can you explain to me how we get the ROI? Are we saving $10,000 a year in mowing 2 fields, or does it cost us $10,000 a year to mow 2 fields? I just want some more information on that return of investment there.
Through the chair to Councillor Wilsey, how we determine the return on investment is between the cost of fuel versus the cost of hydro and the blades, so the consumable, as well as the wages with regards to mowing the 2 fields 3 times a week. So we're not talking about eliminating staff. So we're talking about redeploying staff. So this savings, albeit we've identified it as a payback in 4 years, it's a redeployment of staff to do other tasks within the department. So there's approximately, I want to say it's 252 staff hours that would be redeployed to other areas, whether it's line trimming, tree pruning, pulling weeds, watering baskets, whatever it could be, setting up for different events throughout the community, such as Ribfest that's coming up this weekend and so on. So it's not a true savings because we're not eliminating those 252 hours.
Councilor Derbyshire.
Thank you. Through you to the director. Down there, we have 2 soccer pitches where it's at right now that it's doing. Is that taken up all the time, or could it actually venture maybe over into softball fields or somewhere else? Or is that about the amount, is that about what it can do with its 3 cuts or whatever, however often we're doing it? I guess, can it do more, or is it maxed out on its time and production?
Through the chair to Councilor Derbyshire, it could do more. The problem is that we're going to have to add a tower with, which is an $11,000 addition. This type of technology is scalable. If we wanted to do all of Yorkview Community Complex, which is about 25 acres, we would need about 4 of those robots. The challenge is we don't want to be using soccer players like the turf really short. Baseball players don't like it as short. So it's not that we'd be able to use the same mower on a ball diamond as we would on a soccer field.
One more.
So it's not programmable to be like, today you cut York soccer and then tomorrow, like a program kind of like you'd have in your iPads. Yeah, no.
It is. It just, if the program, if we forget to program it, then we're creating a lot more work for ourselves, that's all. It can be expanded. I would have to double check the range in which it could go, to be honest with you.
How many man hours would it take to glue the grass back on when it goes out? But no, in comparison, what I was going to ask too, in comparison to a commercial mower that you are using to that, like when we actually think about possibly expanding it and moving forward, I know a commercial mower is not cheap, and maybe the option is, instead of a $60,000 or $70,000 commercial mower, we move into something that works out this way. Maybe.
Any more questions? Councilor Canis.
Just a comment. I mean, I think this is sort of the way of the future, these types of things. So I think it's a good initial experiment into this type of facility maintenance.
Seeing none, more questions. Motion that council direct staff to work with the Strathroy United Soccer Club to develop a cost-sharing proposal for the capital purchase of a commercial autonomous mower. Councilor Brannan, second by Councilor Canis. All in favor? Carried. I expect a text from ex-Councilor Cowan wanting to know if it can do Sutherland Road. Proud. Move to engineering and public works. Will that be you? Motion to receive and report the sidewalk tender award for information. Someone agree motion, Councilor Brannan, second by Councilor Pammer. All in favor? Carried. CAO McKibben.
Thank you, Your Worship. As council is aware, the tender was posted for the 2024 sidewalk repair and replacement on June 5th. The tender closed on June 25th, and there were 10 bids received. Those 10 bids are listed within the report. The recommendation from staff, I should mention, the tender was updated, an addendum was posted based on council's decision from the June 17th meeting where Dell Drive was removed, the sidewalks in Dell Drive were removed. So that addendum went out on June 18th. And so before you is a recommendation that the tender be awarded to Armstrong Paving and Materials Group Limited in the amount of $130,100.33 plus HST.
Any questions? Councilor Wilsey.
Have we worked at the lowest 2 bids are within a couple $100? Have we worked with both firms, or have we agreed with Armstrong, or is there any preference with one or the other? So I'm not familiar with either of them.
CEO McKibben.
I'm sorry, I don't have the information. I'm not sure if the Director of Finance could tell from a billing perspective if we worked with either one before.
Through the chair to Councillor Wilsey, the 2 lowest bidders we have not used in the past. There are others on there that we have used, but those those two we haven't used.
Any other questions? Councilor Derbyshire, then the Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, I just threw you to, I think I just wanted to make note that we should earmark the 87,500 for sidewalks in Strathroy, as I believe that was part of our discussion, just so it's not thrown in, it should be marked that that is left over for the Ward 1 sidewalks.
Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I guess I was just looking for clarification about the Dell sidewalk. So was it included in it was included, then you put an addendum in, but on the pricing, does it show the work on Dell, but we're just not gonna do it on Dell, so there's,
Through the chair to the deputy mayor. So the addendum removed Dell from the scope of work. So the pricing that you see here is excluding Dell from the work.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, motion that the 2024 sidewalk tender is awarded to Armstrong Paving and Materials Group for the amount of $130,100.33 plus HST. Motion, Councillor Kennis, seconded by Councillor Wilsey. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. We have 3 reports to be approved tonight. The Community Development, or CDAC meeting minutes from April 9th, Caradoc Housing meeting minutes of May 15th, the Caradoc Housing minutes from special meeting from May 28th. Motion that the reports from the boards and committees be received for information. Councillor Brandon, sent by Councillor Kennis. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. County Council report, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. You'll see included in the package the county council highlights that they publish out. I will say that we did have the special meeting on the 26th of June in regards to the county development charges. And I know that staff had a number of questions about how that would be collected and just, there was a number of questions of staff. I listened intently to try to be able to bring all those answers back, and it would be wrong of me to even try to suggest I understand it all, and I don't know that it's all been fleshed out. So it was talked about, but I think it's really probably a staff to staff. You'll understand it far better than I could ever give it to you. Thank you.
Thanks. Inquiries or comments? Do you want to go first, Deputy Mayor?
I had one. I've had some questions asked in regards to no parking signs that were, I don't know, I'll use the word recently, but I don't know how recent, put up on Riverview Drive, and their term justification for that. So I'm not trying to put anybody on the point right now, but perhaps at some point we could have an explanation as to just how that process occurred and why those parking signs were put on Riverview Drive, just north of Hall Road, I guess is where they are. I went up and kind of in the Lemoore Crescent area.
Yep. CAO, did you want to? Yep, go ahead.
Just from living in that area, there's a curve there, and I know that if people parked on both sides of the street, if they were coming from one side or the other, you wouldn't be able to see cars coming from the other side. So and there's no sidewalks there either, so people walking on the street as well. So just from personal experience, I have heard that there was a request for no parking signs there in the past, and but I can't talk about the process or anything, but that's just my experience with that piece of street.
But did you want to chime in, and we'll let the CAO?
Well, just institutional memory is that the people living on the, I think it was 1 or 2 properties living on the inside of that curve requested it. And it was supported by people in the area as a safety measure for walkers. And I don't know if that's 10 years ago, 8 years ago, but it was something which was at the request of residents of that street for the reasons cited by Councillor Kennis.
Which is a good segue for me, councillors, that the sidewalk does end further to the north on Riverview, but CAO, you wanted to jump in.
Through to the deputy mayor, you had some questions, and please, Director Huff, correct me if I'm wrong, my recollection of this one, but I believe there was a complaint received in this area. Am I correct on this one? So there was a complaint received. Staff went out and did a assessment of the area and determined that no parking signs should be placed on one side of the road to ensure a path of travel for safety of pedestrians walking along the road, because there was no sidewalks in that area.
Okay, I'll delve deeper into it later.
Councillor Palmer. Councillor Derbyshire.
Thank you. So I'll just go back to my point that I was going to make a while ago. I did talk today. I did speak with our deputy fire chief and ask about his input into some of the things that have been going on. And he did say he helped write the tender, but he said essentially he had no other input into much of what was going on. I did speak with HR to try to figure out whether our chief is on a working leave or a part-time leave or kind of what.
I just can interrupt. Councillor Derbyshire, probably not appropriate to talk in open session about an HR issue, especially an identifiable issue. I understand your question, but I'd ask you have it directed in confidence to the CAO or
Okay.
HR, okay?
Well, I guess then what my point is, as council members, how come we're not respecting the person that is sitting in the chair that has the job, and we're going around? Like, this is the guy, if somebody asks who's our chief or acting chief right now, it's this guy, but we're not dealing with him.
Yeah, just one second. Sorry, CAO. Yeah, I'm just gonna ask Councillor, it is a staffing matter. They shouldn't be discussed any form in open council, so if there are questions, you can get it on the agenda for closed session, the next one, but I'm just gonna ask that since it's a staffing member, identifiable individual, that we just leave it there for now.
I will do that. I just would like to respect the process that he should be given.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Councillor Brennan.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Councillor Wilsey.
First of all, I wanted to thank all the people in the area who've been putting together the candidate celebrations and everything else. There's been a lot going on. Thank you to all the volunteers and everyone who made that happen, and municipal staff as well who helped organize that. Second to that is I was speaking with some of the different groups. I was speaking particularly to the Mount Bridges Lions, and they were talking to me about their meeting nights and the pickleball that's scheduled at the same time of their meetings on Monday night. So now that we're into summer break, I'm wondering if I don't think we need a motion for this, if I do correct me on that, but I want to know if we could free up Monday nights so that we don't have pickleball scheduled at the same time as the Lions meeting, because the pickleball in the next room, the Lions have told me that they're not able to conduct their regular business from all the noise of the pickleball in the next room. And they have, as part of their agreement, the Caradoc Community Center for a certain time, which lines directly up with when we've scheduled pickleball. So they actually can't hold their meetings at the Caradoc Community Center anymore because they can't hear themselves, so they're not able to use the facility that we've set aside for them.
Yeah, that's a fair question. I've heard the same thing. Councillor, CAO, did you want to jump in?
If we may, let's bring this staff, I think, because we have contracts and agreements and things in place too. So I think staff will have to review what's currently in place. I don't think we can, sorry.
Through the chair, sorry. Are you talking now, like, so with the summertime coming on, are they still meeting during the summer, or do they break during the summer?
I'm not sure if they're still meeting through the summer. This was brought up to me about a few weeks ago, before the summer break. But I was thinking with the summer break, if we could change the pickleball schedule for September, was my thought.
If you could have a Lions Club member call me so I can just find out exactly what the time frame is, because we may be able to adjust pickleball to happen before their meeting versus during their meeting and that kind of stuff. So if you could ask them to call me, then we can work something out. That would be the best arrangement.
I can facilitate that.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Canis.
I had an inquiry from someone today asking why there were no fireworks in Strathroy on Canada Day, and I responded that there used to be, but there was no group willing to take the lead on holding fireworks within the community at this time, so I encouraged them to form a group or find a group willing to do that, and that I believe the municipality always has seed money available for such projects in the future. So we'll see what happens, but if people are wondering why there's no fireworks in Strathroy in a public setting, that's because there's no one who is wanting to do it at this point. And also, I think our bylaw on fireworks allows fireworks on Canada Day and the Victoria Day holiday, yet I hear them throughout the weekend, so I think people need to be reminded that, again, it's supposed to be on the day, and again, I appreciate, I don't want to be a spoil sport about it, but I know a number of people that have dogs that don't enjoy fireworks, and so I think for everyone, you know, if we stick to the date that they're supposed to be set off, then that would be good.
Thank you. Councillor Hippel.
Thank you. I also wanted to thank everyone that participated in every way, shape, or form for the Canada Day Delco Bridge celebration. It was in Kamoka this year, but still, it's Delco Bridge, and there is an awful lot of fun with all three communities coming together. And it's always very, very well attended, and the food is always delicious. I did have a couple of questions for our Director of Recreation. At seniors cards. You know where I'm going with this. I know that we are extremely fortunate to have so many camps all through the summer for children of all ages, and each year it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. But then the seniors get knocked out of the areas that they're in if they're playing cards or various other things, and so ultimately they're taking a break through the summer, but a lot of them, that's kind of what they have. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about the Caradoc Community Center, and if they have to drive to, if they're driving anyways and they're going in groups, and I know this, is there, you know, I know there's a smaller room at the Caradoc Community Center, and I wondered if perhaps that was used or if you had thought about using that. And then on that same token, before you answer that one, the market. I know when the market gets canceled because of crazy weather, and I mean right now, who knows what the weather's gonna be like tomorrow, but when we get that insane amount of rain and et cetera, and we have to cancel, and we don't have a spot for it, because we used to go to West Middlesex Center, right, or Memorial Center. Has anyone ever thought about using the Caradoc Community Center? I mean, I know that seems odd, but personally, I don't think it is odd. It's a Strathroy market, but at the same time, a lot of people are coming from all over the place, and it's not just people from Strathroy. So anyways, just throwing those things out there, because those are questions and comments I had, and I did already speak to you about the fireworks, so I'll let Frank just sit with that one.
You don't even have a comment on any of those, Director.
So, through the chair to Councillor Hippel, aren't these great problems to have? Like, yeah. Our facilities are so full, we now need to figure out what we're doing with people. So these are good problems to have. Seniors cards, Caradoc Community Center, I could fully investigate that, see if that's an option. More specifically to the market, our goal is to cancel the market as few times as possible. This past weekend, we sent the email out at 9 o'clock Friday morning to all the vendors. So those vendors who were starting to prep and bake fresh goods, hopefully were able to either stop or not start. But prior to canceling the market, we sent a survey out to all of the vendors to see who would be willing to relocate to the Gemini, because we could have moved the market to the Gemini. I believe we had 8. So it doesn't really make for a great market. Ideally, when we had the ability to move it to the West Middlesex Memorial Center, it's still the proximity to downtown it's closer than the Gemini, easier to promote. But the challenge now is our facilities are so busy, we don't have the availability of that large floor space to do that. So, but I will pass it along to those who run the market to maybe consider the Caradoc Community Center as an option.
Thank you. And I have one, and I'm gonna apologize to the CAO and to you, because I don't like to ask the question without coming first, but I did have it written down. And it was simply this, not for this meeting, but maybe the next meeting, just an update on the status of the fire hall construction. I mean, I'm sure council would like to know if we're on time and on budget. So I just apologize, CAO, for asking that now, but I did have it written down. For next is an update on that construction of the fire hall. Okay, we'll now move to council will now meet in closed session to consider matters it is permitted to do so under the Municipal Act and is listed on tonight's council agenda. Call for a motion to enter closed session at 7:55 to discuss the following. One item in accordance with council's procedure bylaw to approve the June 17th, 2024 in-camera meeting minutes. One item pursuant to section 239(2)D of the Municipal Act regarding labor relations or employee negotiations, a hiring report, and one item pursuant to section 239(2)B of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended regarding personal matters of an identifiable individual, including municipal employees. Notice a motion by Councillor Wilsey. Someone to make the motion to go into closed session. Councillor Wilsey, second by Councillor Hippel. All in favor? Carried. We will take a 10-minute break. Welcome back. We had a motion, call for motion at open session resume at 8:25 PM. Someone to bring the motion. Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Kennis. All in favor. Council met in closed session and considered matters it is permitted to do so under the Municipal Act and is listed on tonight's council agenda. The following items were considered during the closed session. One item in accordance with council's procedure bylaw to approve the June 17th, 2024 in-camera meeting minutes. The meeting minutes were approved. One item pursuant to section 239(2)D of the Municipal Act regarding labor relations or employee negotiations, hiring report. Council received a confidential staff report for information and direction was given to staff. One item pursuant to section 239(2)B of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended regarding personal matters of an identifiable individual, including municipal employees. Notice of motion, Councillor Wilsey. Discussion took place regarding Councillor Wilsey's notice of motion. At this time, turn over to Councillor Wilsey.
Thank you. I would like to, as a two-part, withdraw the notice of motion and then ask council for approval to bring forward a new motion without notice.
Okay, you want to bring someone to second your motion? Deputy Mayor, this will require a 2/3 vote. All in favor? Carried. Councillor Wilsey, you have a new motion.
My new motion would be that we refer back to staff to develop a report where we could implement a policy where the engineer that performs a study cannot be the engineer to design the solution or manage the project's construction.
Okay, someone seconder, Deputy Mayor, any questions?
I'll speak to it for a minute.
Yep.
And then, reason I'm bringing this forward is based on some research that I've done. This would bring us in line with other municipalities and would strengthen our policy preventing sole sourcing. I also believe that the wording here would let us continue the practice where the engineer who designs the project and does the actual physical design could still supervise the construction and still let us to have those savings that go forward, but just allow us to have a second set of eyes on those projects that are designed so that we can make sure that we have a second set of eyes to make sure we're double checking work and make sure we get the best possible solution for the municipality.
Okay. You have a second motion. All in favor? Sorry, Frank, I apologize.
Question, there's a wording in there about cannot. To me, that is restrictive, and so, you know, I'm fine with, you know, it's preferred not, or we look for options or whatever, but to just say cannot, I think restricts us or restricts future councils in what they can do. I'm not sure, maybe I'm wrong in saying that, but when I hear the word cannot, I have concerns.
Any other questions? Councillor Brennan.
Maybe we throw in a sub-clause, unless specifically allowed by council, or something like that. I don't know.
Councillor Wilsey, would you be?
To that I would say we're just asking for a report. We're asking for a report for staff to bring recommendations to us, so if staff can bring the recommendations and we'll see where it comes.
Okay.
I don't want to step on best practices, that's what we're asking to look into.
Okay, fair enough. That's good clarification, thank you for that. So we have the second motion, all in favor, opposed if any, carried, thank you. Next is the consideration of bylaws. Turn it over to Director of Legislative Services.
Thank you, Chair. The first bylaw for Council's consideration this evening is bylaw 6124, which is the bylaw to amend the appointment bylaw, appointing members and council representatives to certain authorities, boards, and committees. The recommendation is that bylaw 6124 receive first, second, and third and final reading.
The motion that bylaw number 61-24 receive first, second, third, and final reading. Someone to bring the motion. Councillor Kennis, second by Councillor Brennan. All in favor? Carried.
And the second bylaw this evening would be the bylaw to confirm the proceedings of this evening's meeting of the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc. The recommendation is that bylaw 6224 receive first, second, and third and final reading.
Motion that bylaw number 62-24 receive first, second, third, and final reading. Someone bring the motion. Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Kennis. All in favor? Carried. Motion that the July 2nd, 2024 regular council meeting adjourn at 8:30 p.m. Someone bring the motion. Councillor Hippel, second by Councillor Brennan. All in favor? Carried.